Hello, everybody. Welcome to the show. This is Hillbilly Crime, and my name is Elizabeth, your friendly hillbilly host. And I wanted to jump on here today and kind of do a little crime binge. That's what I'm going to call this live. There's a case that I have just been all ears about, and it's of a police officer who had been having a relationship with a young girl from the Explorers program named Sandra Birchmore. And I don't know how many people are familiar with that case. Um, but he has been indicted. We're going to watch um, a video, and I'm going to read an article, and then we're going to watch a couple lawyers who are going to give their take on this case. But everybody, come on in. And, well, I might have to do it this other way then. Give me just a second. I'm sorry. How is everybody tonight? Let's see. Hello, Miss Lovebug. Hello. I might have to do it this other way, which would be fine. Let me share my screen, and we'll go on to the article. I want to listen to the press conference with you. So let me go up here to the top of it. It says ex-cop charged in pregnant lover's twisted red rum plot. He remains behind bars. This was updated September 12th, 2024. So it is pretty recent. Okay. It says former Staunton officer Matthew Farwell, who's charged with unaliving Sandra Birchmore to keep her from revealing scandalous details about their affair and her pregnancy, remains behind bars as the Massachusetts Red Rum case heads to trial. A grand jury indicted Farwell for allegedly putting his hands up here to her neck, 23-year-old Birchmore, and staging the scene as a self-unaliving, leading to his arrest on August 28th in Revere, Massachusetts. If convicted, he could face a possible death sentence. Authorities found Birchmore, who claimed Farwell was the father of her unborn child, unalived in her Canton apartment on February 1st, 2021. U.S. Attorney's Office Public Affairs Specialist Caroline Ferguson told Newsweek the defense filed a motion on September 7th to keep the defendant in custody with the option to revisit the decision later. And there he is. That's a picture of him. And this whole case is so sad because he's not the only one that was doing this. It was him, it was his twin brother, who was also a police officer, and it was another higher up police officer. They all three were having relations with this girl. But he was the father, allegedly. Farwell's detention hearing was set for Thursday, but he has requested it be canceled. A detention hearing is a court proceeding where a judge decides whether a defendant should remain in custody or be released while awaiting trial. The prosecutors are pushing to keep Farwell in custody before trial, arguing he's a danger to the community and a serious flight and obstruction risk. After an opportunity to consult with his counsel, Mr. Farwell now asks the court to enter a voluntary order of detention without prejudice, saving his right to request a detention hearing at a later date when his counsel has had additional time to review materials relating to this case and prepare for such a hearing. The defendant's motion said. Mr. Farwell's further asks that this court cancel the detention hearing scheduled for September 12th, 2024. Detention without prejudice means the defendant stays in custody, but the decision isn't final. The defense can ask for another hearing to review it, and the prosecution can still bring new arguments or charges if needed. Newsweek contacted Farwell's lawyer, Jane Peachy, but she said she does not have any comment at this time. This is a really great article. It gives a whole lot of detail. Ferguson told Newsweek no further court dates have been scheduled yet. However, it will likely be a standard status conference where both parties will update the judge on the progress of the case. Farwell, along with his twin brother, William Farwell, and Richard Devine, allegedly began grooming Birchmore when she was just 12 years old. This occurred during her participation in the Staunton Police Department's Explorers Program, the U.S. Attorney said during a press conference last month. During her younger years, she had an interest in pursuing a career in law enforcement. In March of 2010, Birchmore applied to be a participant in the program. The Explorer program provides young people with opportunities to explore different career paths, including law enforcement. Police departments across the country partner with the Explorer program to establish local Explorer programs. Farwell and Birchmore's relationship. There's another picture of him. Let's go over here. Let me pull it up a little bit better. There we go. Maybe you can see it a little bit better that way. Good morning or good evening. Hello, everybody. How are you? Shamex, LS, Justice Jane. Hello, just found your channel. Well, welcome to the Hillbilly family, honey. Come on in. Yes. Shamex, too. There's so much wrong here. The dead and the premise of it never getting out, but ultimately leads to the worst case scenario. And the only way, this is like 3 years later that they have charged him with her death. For a long time, it was just labeled a self-inflicted thing. And from what I understand, the only way the FBI got involved in this case and all of this was uncovered was because her family had enough money, or they raised enough money, where they were able to hire their own pathologist. So they were able to get a second autopsy. And once they got that second autopsy, it blew the first one out of the water, and so then the FBI kind of came in and took over the investigation. But this article really gives us a lot of good detail. Let's see. That's him. It says this photo of the day, August 27th, 2013, from the archives. Officer Matt Farwell, now with Staunton Police, not anymore, he ain't, on Glen Road at a traffic stop in 2010. And he is 6'4", and this little girl was only like 4'10". That's her right there. Farwell continued this sexual relationship with Birchmore after she became an adult and continued to engage in an extramarital sexual relationship with her until she was unalived. Their sexual relationship spanned nearly 10 years, with Farwell saying he wished it had started earlier. I mean, come on. On October 5th, 2020, Birchmore drafted a text message meant for Farwell's wife and sent it to someone else. The person she sent it to told her that Farwell's wife was expecting their third child, due in February 2021. That same day, Birchmore gave Farwell an ultimatum. He needed to agree to have unprotected sex with her to impregnate her, and in exchange, she would keep their relationship a secret. I mean, that just doesn't even sound like, why would you put, if you were a police officer, why in God's name would you put yourself into a position like this? That just completely baffles my mind. First, you're married and you have kids. And then, secondly, she's a child herself. It absolutely just baffles my mind. Let's see. Shaymek says, it being law enforcement is getting too common. We were taught to trust the police, but how do you trust them now? That's a good point. Let's see. The situation escalated in late 2020 and early 2021 when Birchmore discovered she was pregnant and informed Farwell, who did not share her excitement, according to the court filings. But if she was making you do it with unprotected, what did you think was going to happen? I mean, really, what did you think was going to happen? How could you get mad then? It's your own doing. He should have kept these britches pulled up, in my opinion. That's what stops that, you know. On February 4th, 2021, Canton police officers performed a well-being check at Birchmore's apartment after one of her co-workers reported she did not come in to work that day. I mean, she was a child. Look at that picture of her, y'all. She was a child. Like, I don't understand. I do not understand. Yes, guys, we have memberships. So anybody wants to become a member of the Hillbilly family, please become a member. Okay. This was by age 15. Farwell, then a 27-year-old officer, had initiated a sexual relationship with her that continued until her death. When officers arrived, they found Birchmore's body seated on the floor in a reclined position with a duffel bag strap tied around her neck. The strap was connected to her closet doorknob, the closet Farwell had inspected approximately 1 week earlier. Staunton Police Department. Now, what they said right there, where he had inspected it a week earlier, well, what he had done whenever she told him she was pregnant, he decided he needed a key to her apartment all of a sudden when he'd never had one before. And so he came over to her apartment and she told somebody in a text message that he had come over and asked for a key, and that he was inspecting her closet, the doorway of her closet, and he was just going around the apartment like he was planning it then. What does that show you how they look at women? And she wasn't even a woman. She was a child when it started. And if she was so easily, able to, if he was so easily able to throw her away and take her life, what do you think he's been doing on the police department this whole time? And when his buddies and his brother found out what he was doing, instead of them stopping it or anything other than joining in, they just joined him in that behavior. What's that say? I just don't understand it. I absolutely do not understand it. Let's see. We've got Pinto. Hello, Pinto. Welcome, honey. Lori Jean. Hello. Hey, y'all. All right. Let's see. Let me get back over here to our article. Staunton Police Department officials expressed deep concern about the alleged crime. The alleged red rum of Sandra is a horrific injustice, said Police Chief Donna McNamara in a press release. The allegations against the suspect represent the worst act of professional misconduct and human indecency I have observed in nearly 3 decades of law enforcement. And I think that's it from that article. Let me go back over here and I'll pull up this press conference this other way real quick. For some reason, my computer's being fussy. Probably got too much open. Let me close a bunch of this. But yeah, this case is just, and this case is also connected to the Karen Reed case, because they are both in Massachusetts. The Kentucky State Police has not Kentucky State Police, the Massachusetts State Police were the ones that were responsible for this investigation. And the same police officer, if I'm not mistaken, the same police officer that was the lead detective in the Karen Reed case was also one of the detectives. I don't know if he was the lead detective or not, but he was also one of the detectives in this case. And, police officers, they watch out for other police officers so much. And so it's really kind of hard to trust. It's really hard to trust anybody. Let's see. LS. Scary. It sure is. Okay, I think I got all that closed out now. I had way too much going. Sorry, y'all. Maybe this is going to work now. Let me stop sharing that. So how is everybody? Did you have a great Thanksgiving? We did. We went to Love Bugs for Thanksgiving. And we had an absolute great time. She fed us all. and we got to play some harmonica. And here's some banjo picking. Let's see. Well, this still ain't gonna work. I don't know why that's going on that way. So I'm just gonna have to pull it up this way. Sorry, y'all. Birchmore press conference. And I don't know if you guys ever watch them, but there is a YouTuber, the lawyer you know, and done some on this case. Let's see. All right, there we go. Let's listen to the press conference.
Was found dead in her Canton, Massachusetts apartment. The charges filed today in federal court allege that she was in fact murdered by Matthew Farwell 3 days earlier. At the time of her death, Sandra Birchmore was a 23-year-old woman with her entire life ahead of her, and she was pregnant with her first child. We allege that Sandra Birchmore survived years of grooming, statutory rape, and then sexual violence, all at the hands of Matthew Farwell, who was employed throughout their relationship as an officer and then detective for the Stoughton Police Department. And when it became clear to Mr. Farwell that he could no longer control Sandra Birchmore, he allegedly silenced her permanently. This morning, Matthew Farwell was arrested on a federal grand jury indictment, charging him with one count of killing a witness or victim. Specifically, Mr. Farwell is charged of violating Title 18 United States Code 1512 for killing Sandra Birchmore with the intent of preventing her from communicating information about his possible commission of federal crimes. How did this all unfold? What happened here? Well, back in 2010, a 12-year-old Sandra Birchmore applied to join the Stoughton Police Department's Explorers program, which introduces teens to policing. Officer Matthew Farwell was an instructor in that program. And as alleged in court documents, he befriended Sandra Birchmore, contacted her online, went to the library with her, became friends on Facebook, essentially groomed her. And then he committed statutory rape by having sex with her when he was a 27-year-old police officer and she was just 15 years old. Mr. Farwell continued to have a sexual relationship with Sandra Birchmore until her death 8 years later, allegedly meeting her for sex regularly when he was on duty and being paid by the Stoughton Police Department. Now, in the weeks leading up to Sandra Birchmore's death in February 2021, she found out that she was expecting a baby. And she told Mr. Farwell that he was the father. According to court documents, Ms. Birchmore was very excited about becoming a mother, buying baby clothes and other items, taking precautions to ensure the health of her new child. Sandra Birchmore had good friends, she had a good job, she had dreams of becoming a nurse, and she had a child on the way. But Mr. Farwell did not share in that excitement. It's alleged that Mr. Farwell reacted quite negatively to the news that Sandra Birchmore was pregnant with his child. And he acted angrily, it is alleged, when Sandra Birchmore started making requests of Mr. Farwell around doctor's appointments and ultrasounds and what information would be on the birth certificate. Mr. Farwell was losing control in late 2020, early 2021. And the information that Sandra Birchmore possessed about his illegal conduct was in danger of slipping out. In fact, word started to get out about their relationship. Less than 2 weeks before she was found dead, someone called the Stoughton Police Department and disclosed that Matthew Farwell had had a relationship with Sandra Birchmore. And when Mr. Farwell learned about that call, he became visibly angry. Mr. Farwell, it is alleged in these court papers, started to lose his patience, lose his temper, and the 6'4" Mr. Farwell started to be physically violent with 4'10" Sandra Birchmore. And Sandra Birchmore told her friends that Mr. Farwell had pushed her and shoved her and put her in a chokehold. She was scared. And during that same time, Mr. Farwell was allegedly planning Sandra Birchmore's murder. For the first time, he requested a key to her apartment. And she told friends that he was oddly inspecting the apartment and looking at the closet, including the closet that she was found dead in front of. And then it all came to a head on February 1st, 2021. Mr. Farwell went over to her apartment that evening, and he strangled Sandra Birchmore to death. That's the allegation in this case. And he used his knowledge and experience as a law enforcement officer to stage her death to look like a suicide. He allegedly attempted to cover his tracks to literally try and get away with murder. And he almost did, until today. Back in 2021, with the information that was available, Sandra Birchmore's death was ruled a suicide, or deemed a suicide. But over the last year or so, the FBI and our office have been working exhaustively with our state partners. We've uncovered critical new information, examined the existing information, all of which led to this federal grand jury indictment. If convicted on this charge, Mr. Farwell faces a minimum of life imprisonment. Giving voice to the voiceless, ensuring that no one is above the law, protecting the vulnerable people of Massachusetts, that's the highest calling of people in law enforcement. And this case represents those principles. And every day across Massachusetts, thousands of police officers, federal, state, local law enforcement, put their lives on the line to protect the people of Massachusetts. Mr. Farwell violated those principles, and now he faces very grave consequences. It is disheartening to have to charge law enforcement officers, especially with crimes as serious. But it's our job at the Department of Justice to investigate potential crimes without fear and without favor. We do in this office what we've been doing for decades with our federal partners like the FBI. We follow the facts, regardless of where they lead. We apply the law and the principles of federal prosecution, full stop. We are not influenced by social media chatter. We are not influenced by politics. We're influenced by the facts and the law. Our mission is to do our level best to do justice in every case. And our mission today is to do justice for Sandra Birchmore. Lastly, I want to note that we are sharing the information and the evidence that we developed in this case with the Norfolk County District Attorney's Office, with the Massachusetts State Police, and with the Massachusetts Attorney General's Office, so they can assess whether state charges may be warranted in this situation. And I want to thank those. I also want to thank the Department for in our investigation. I want to the women, FBI, Boston, incredible work on this case. Dogged investigation. Look at the court papers, you'll see work has gone a huge. Particularly want to thank members of my office, the lead, the victims, paralegal of our civil rights unit, Liz Riley.
I'm Stephen Keller, FBI, and approximately 40 FBI arrested former Stoughton police officer for allegedly taking the life of Sandra Birch to ensure her silence. In custody of the shopping plaza in Revere without immediately following his arrest, we shared this with family. We know, simply put, this case is Farwell after he was abused when she was just 15 years old. Her body. It's also about keeping Mr. from getting harming anyone else. Law enforcement are in authority because our decisions consequences,
Live
both good
TV, y'all.
and to temper that power.
Thanks,
It's an
Calvin
ethical
Blaine.
standard.
I just realized that.
We believe Officer Matthew in today's indictment
I said live
and a
TV.
so
It happened.
in the public. Let me be clear. Was gun and bat authority to violate,
I don't know why
and it's certainly
glitching like
sexually
that.
exploit and rape a child, killing her and her in an attempt to cover up. But we believe Matthew Farwell
If it keeps
body.
glitching, I'll take it off.
Make it look like she had died. This sworn police officer in Massachusetts State about the nature of this. It's a stark statement and
Yeah.
pure. When she told Farwell that she was a child,
Can you hear
she
me
had made
now?
celebrated,
Should be
Our
unmuted.
covered additional assistance with someone choosing
Sometimes my comments come in a little bit
up to San photographer to inquire about
messed
the
up.
issue. She also
Okay. Can you hear me now? Yeah, if you guys give me some bunch of likes, maybe that'll help it. Sorry, y'all. Sometimes things just don't want to work very well. Let me see if I can, now that I've got everything else closed out, let me see if I can pull down this video file that I got. It wasn't wanting to pull up there a second ago, or at least it was taking forever. But this, yeah, Amanda, I've been following this case since it first, became publicized, I guess. And the Karen Reed case, I watched a lot of that first trial, and I was just
Police department in Staunton, Massachusetts. That's how you say that.
Okay, this is the lawyer, and his dad, and they go over. I did a little, I pieced this together earlier, and and I sped it up, so they're talking really fast. But it goes over the indictment, and then I cut out that press conference off of it. So we can listen to this if y'all want to. And it gives us a really, really good look at their lawyers, the legal perspective.
At Staunton, we'll do our best. In his capacity as a Staunton police officer, Farwell also served as an instructor for the Staunton Police Explorers Academy, hereinafter Police Explorers, which was a vocational educational program for local youth.
This is the
The
indictment.
Police Explorers was designed to enable youth participants to learn about law enforcement careers. And in case you're not picking up where this case is going, we're going to be dealing with one of those students or youth in the Police Explorers programs here. Stowtown. Okay, I was way off. Stowtown. Stoughton.
Yeah,
Not
they're
Stowtown.
really,
That's my
really
bad.
awesome.
All right, Stoughton.
I love
Thank you.
watching them.
All right, you guys are the best. You
He
guys
has
are literally the best.
long
Correcting my
ones,
pronunciation
So
just right off the bat.
I,
First video on Sandra Birchmore, and now we know how to say
a
Stoughton.
couple
Thank you guys.
out
Thank you
of it
for saving me the embarrassment. Sandra Birchmore
to
was
explain
born
it to
in
us.
May of 1997. On or around March of 2010, she's 13 years old. 12 years old. She applied to be a participant in the Police Explorers. She began participating in the program around 2010 and remained in that program until 2016. Prior to, in or around 2012, Farwell was a Police Explorers volunteer. He became an instructor when he started working for Staunton Police Department in 2012. Before Birchmore attained the age of 16, Farwell engaged in sexual intercourse and other sexual acts with Birchmore. Farwell's sexual contact with Birchmore continued until in or around early 2021. And that date is also significant because that's when she passed. The Stoughton Police Department required employees, including police officers, to accurately report their time and attendance in order to receive wages and overtime. During some of the shifts when Farwell was supposed to be performing his duties as a Stoughton Police Department officer, he was instead engaging in sexual acts with Birchmore. He failed to disclose that information to Stoughton Police Department. He took steps to conceal his conduct from other department employees. And some of this gets into the federal nexus too, Dad, which you can talk about once we finish reading. In or around December of 2020, Birchmore learned that she was pregnant. Birchmore told Farwell that he was the father of the child. So you can see, obviously, the plot thickening. You can see the motive rising. On or about January 20, 2021, Birchmore's friend called Stoughton Police Department and told department employee that Farwell had been having sex with Birchmore. Shortly after, Stoughton Police Department employee told Farwell about the call. On or about February 1st, Farwell killed.
And I'm going to stop at real quick. Right between there, on or about January 20th, Birchmore's friend called the police department and told them that Farwell had been having this affair with Sandra. And they said, it didn't say it here in the indictment, but many reports have said, allegedly, that he was mad. He was furious that that call had been made. But, you know, he had a 10-year. He had been messing with her for 10 years. And I've got a video, too, if I can get it to pull up, of the security camera footage from her apartment. And it shows him going in and out of her apartment. I mean, and then number one thing that this lawyer's daddy's going to tell us here at the end of this, the number one thing that got him were his text messages. That's the first thing that the police in any investigation do, is pull your phone records, and they can go and see any of your text messages. Even if you delete them, they can still recover them. I mean, it blows me away that people still will do crazy things on their phone and think that they're not going to get caught. Oh, thank you, Love Bug. $5 super sticker. Let me go there and fix that. That makes her our stream sponsor. And then if someone makes a bigger one, then they'll become the stream sponsor. Love Bug. Thank you, honey. Thank you. Okay. So let's listen.
Birchmore by strangulation. Literally, 20th, somebody outs him. The first, she passes.
That's 10
And it's
days.
taken 3+ years
January
to bring these charges.
It's got 31 days.
And these are normally charges that state police would file.
2 weeks.
But instead, the feds had to step in, and we'll talk about why. Farwell, shortly thereafter, Farwell staged Birchmore's Canton, Massachusetts apartment to make it appear as if Birchmore had committed suicide. So this was ruled a suicide almost immediately.
I don't know how they did any investigation. I don't think they did any investigation.
And look, set it up a little way.
His mic was messing up a little bit.
Remind him of presumed innocence. Grand jury charges. Grand jury realleged incorporates by reference the allegations of paragraphs 1 through 8 of this indictment on or about February 1st in Canton, in the District of Massachusetts. The defendant did kill Sarah Birchmore, a person known to the grand jury with malice aforethought, willfully, deliberately, maliciously, and with premeditation. That's first degree. And with the intent to prevent the communication by any person to a law enforcement officer of information relating to the commission or possible commission of a federal offense, to wit, commission or possible commission of the federal offense of deprivation of rights under color of law.
And she was a witness. She was a witness to all of the acts that he was, the criminal acts that he was committing. She wasn't just a victim. She was also a witness.
In violation of 18 U.S.C. 242, coercion and enticement, in violation of 18 U.S.C. 2422, and wire fraud, 18 U.S. 1843, section 1512A1C, and that is the indictment. So some of this will also explain why we're federal. But Dad, now take it away. Explain to us why something that could have been handled by state police is now in the hands of the feds.
It all could have been handled by state police. What happens is we pass specific laws in this country for police corruption. And so in this case, we have a law enforcement officer that under color of law, which is very important because that's one of the requirements for these indictments, is it has to be under color of law. In other words, if some civilian had done this, they could not be charged with this crime. But because it was a law enforcement officer doing it pursuant to his duty as a police officer, just like when congressmen take bribes in order to influence what they do, that's under color of law. So in this case, we have a corrupt official that gives them jurisdiction. We also have a situation where we have wire fraud and mail fraud. What that talks about is anytime you use a telephone or wire, and in this case, what happened was the paychecks were actually wired from the city to the bank accounts of Mr. Farwell here, or Farwell. And because of that being a wire, that's interstate commerce, and therefore it's, again, federal. So we have law enforcement corruption, we have under color of law, and we have wire fraud. All of these things make this federal. Plus, and just to go back a little bit, this was deemed a suicide when it happened. So the state police were taking no action. They were just sitting there. They couldn't be trusted to take action. So the feds had to take this over in order to make it really essentially a murder case, which it's not. But therefore, that suicide was preventing any state law enforcement from doing anything. So it had to go to the. All right. One is, you'll be shocked at how many individuals, civilians, the FBI interviewed that were friends of this young lady's, that gave them bits and pieces that they fit together in a puzzle to show how unlikely it was that she committed suicide. Bits and pieces of evidence. They literally, if I were to guess, and I don't think they give a number in here, I guarantee you that there were thousands of emails that they reviewed. And when they reviewed those thousands, again, they pieced together the dates and times. You know, he talked about an exhaustive investigation. They did a terrific job. They would have a text message about her taking an exam, and they would go back to the school and find out what date that exam was given, who gave the exam, was she there to prove that she was 15 years old when that text message was given. Mm-hmm. So these are the kinds of things that were done by law enforcement. Plus, the interview that you're going to start with, and I'm sure you're going to say this, was done by the state police. And
remember, the state police is who also investigated the Karen Reed case. And in that trial, in the Karen Reed trial, I'm going to do a whole bunch of videos on these, both of these cases. But in the first Karen Reed trial, they had that state police lead detective on the stand, and they really caught him in some terrible moments. I don't really want to explain it because I can't explain it as well as what we can show you in a video. So I'll get that up and we'll watch that too on another time, on another live. But after he got done testifying in that case, the state police suspended him. So and then he was under investigation himself. I'm not sure what all ended up coming from that, but, they really just, like, he talked awful about Karen Reed in text messages to other law enforcement, to his family, to just anybody who would listen. It looked like they were very unprofessional. There wasn't hardly any investigation done. And in this case here, it doesn't look like any investigation was done whatsoever, because when the feds came in and they started talking to her friends and her family, and and they looked at the text messages, it was obvious. Like, it didn't take a rocket scientist to break this case. It's unbelievable.
By his local police department.
Oh yeah, Turtle Boy.
So I just want everybody to know that these facts that they're talking about in this interview and how they disprove what he has to say all come from hundreds of hours of investigators out there interviewing people and reviewing text messages. I mean,
text messages, emails, interviews, the contents of her house, how everything was staged at her house,
sure.
Comparing inconsistencies,
the
medical records and the autopsies, multiple ones that were done, all of it put together, where you can tell this is why it takes a lot of time, but you can also tell they weren't on this case from day one. It would not have taken them 3 years if they were on the case from day one, in my opinion.
No.
Plus, he mentioned it in the press conference, which was really, really good. Her laundry. Her laundry was half done. She had some in the dryer and some in the washer.
Yeah.
This is stuff that
she had also made an appointment earlier that day to get newborn pictures done for her baby. And, a point that I also want to make here that I have not heard one person say, not one time on any of these news reports, in nothing have I heard anybody say that wasn't just her baby. That was his baby. So he didn't just unalive her. He also unalived his own child. His wife was in the hospital giving birth to his third child with her. I don't know if it was the day that he unalived her or if it was the day that they found her. But one of those, it was one of those, but the day that she had the baby, that she gave birth to that baby, coincided with one of these days that was real important in this case. It just blows me away that a police officer, now, police officers are supposed to be honest, or at least you think they are. They're supposed to be have moral character. They're supposed to want to protect and serve the community. And where are they protecting and serving? How can you even trust? Like, a lot of times here, like where we live in the mountains, most of us don't call the police unless we absolutely have to, because so many times you can call the police for help, and when they show up, they're going to take you to jail for something. It's just unbelievable. Oh, Miss Amanda, thank you. $5 from Miss Amanda. I love you, no Turtle Boy. Oh, I love Turtle Boy. Thanks for all the great work. Can't wait to keep following you. I can tell you know what's up. Thank you, sweetheart. Thank you. Let's go in here. That makes her Miss Amanda. Let me fix it real fast. Yeah, I love Turtle Boy. Miss Amanda Holt. Thank you. And then they ended up going after Turtle Boy. They went after Turtle Boy, which I thought was just insane. He's facing charges. I don't think it's over yet either. Unless any of you all know if his case has been, they ended up charging him with like threatening, harassing, and threatening witnesses, and I think it was a felony that they had him charged with.
But they gained through interviews because, again, they weren't there from day one, so they didn't even see the crime scene.
And he's
They
mostly
never even saw
a protester. You know, he was the only one.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like she said.
Okay, let's read some of this here. On February 6th, 2 days after police found Birchmore's body in her apartment, Massachusetts State Police detectives interviewed Farwell. The interview occurred in the parking lot of a Stoughton elementary school. During this interview, Farwell made several false statements about his relationship with Birchmore. Farwell told officers he was involved in a sexual relationship with Birchmore, but claimed that the relationship only began in 2020. Based on the investigation, Farwell's statements to detectives was false. Again, comparing it to his text messages. As described above, Farwell began having this relationship with Birchmore in 2013 and continued until her death. Farwell told detectives that he only had these relationships with Birchmore 2 or 3 times in the previous year. This statement was also false. Based on text message between Farwell and Birchmore, Farwell had intercourse with Birchmore on at least 10 occasions between January of 2020 and February of 2021. Those dates will be important. He also told detectives he could not be the father of Birchmore's unborn child because the last time they had intercourse was in October of 2020. This statement was also false, set forth below in text message conversations, which prove that. Okay. So before we get to some graphic text, all of these things he says here led to the suicide determination, the non-homicide determination, no charges for Farwell based on an interview a couple days later. And obviously they're interviewing him because they know somebody reported he was having an intercourse with Birchmore, who has now passed away just days before her death.
Yeah, and keep in mind, when they were doing this interview, they didn't know these things were false. Right. They were doing this. It was the FBI investigation that proved all these things he's saying are false. So when the state police were interviewing him, they probably just presumed he was telling the truth.
Yeah, but you would think they would look at the text messages.
You would think.
Right.
You would think they would look at the emails. You would think they would cross-reference this stuff and not just take somebody's word for it because he's a cop. That's the problem.
That's the problem right there. They didn't. If it makes more work for them, I mean, it just makes me feel like they're lazy. If it was more work for them, you know, then they're not going to do that. They're just going to take his word. And remember, it wasn't just him. There were 3 of them in his police department who were having a relationship with this girl. And was she the only one? I mean, and the way that the text messages, when they read these text messages, I don't know if they're going to do it on this one or not. I don't think that they did. But in these text messages, it was some of the most vulgar. It was more like smexting. And she was very forward with them sexually. It really surprised me that she was the aggressor, the more sexually aggressive on like the text messages.
Okay, so here's the text message. I'm going to kind of go through them quick and skip over some of the worst parts. I'm going to try for tonight. So this is November 18th when he said it stopped in October of 2020. I'm going to try for tonight all day. Murder, sorry. Exciting. Okay, I'm running to the store now, doing something for you. What are you doing for me? LOL, shaving. Are you planning on rolling me over? I need to know what if you come. If you want me to roll you over, would you use a condom? I don't have any. Never picked any up. Do you want me to just take what you do or try to say no? I know being told no is your favorite. Say no. I can do that. So you start to get a little indication.
So what does that tell you? That right there, some of those text messages show that it's not a vanilla. They don't have a very vanilla relationship. It seems like it's more X-rated. I don't know what you all. I'm only laughing because I'm uncomfortable with it. I'm an inappropriate laugher. I can't help it. But it just makes me, shivers up my spine and stuff. Like, that is so. She was a child. So you have to remember how immature her mind will be. And we also have to remember that this is a form of sexual abuse. Okay. So even though she thought they were in a real relationship, that's not what it was. And her emotional intelligence, I don't know if that's the right word or not, her emotional capacity, maybe, I'm not thinking of the right word, the level of her emotions are going to be as a child. And you remember how teenagers, I mean, we can just think about ourselves, but look at our kids. When we've got 13-year-old kids, 12, 13-year-old children, it reminds me of the Maddie Soto case. We still haven't done a real good video on Maddie Soto, but we're going to. She was 13. Her mom's boyfriend unalived her on her 13th birthday, but he had been having relations with her as far back that they could document from when she was 8 years old. And I believe in that case, she thought he was her boyfriend. Like, they thought, I think personally, that she thought they were in a relationship. Same with Sandra Birchmore. She thought they were in a real relationship. She had him quit using protection so she could get pregnant. And then she gets pregnant and she's all excited and happy about it, asking him if he'll come to the doctor's appointments with her. And that's making him mad. I mean, I just don't understand his mentality's at. You blaming her, but yet he's the one who's the adult. He's the one that should be more stopping it, even if she was infatuated with him. It just blows me away, y'all. Blows me away. And these are police officers. It's not like these are just men in their neighborhood. That's a big deal. I mean, it is a big deal. Pinto, laziness and covering for him. And those other two officers, the brother, the Farwell brother, and then that other guy, they've never even been arrested. I think they're off the police department. I think they might have been fired, but they have not been arrested for anything. The only one they've arrested is this one who actually unalived her. But what about the other two that were doing things with her? It just blows me away.
Of their relationship, the grooming stuff, and some of what is coming later. Approximately 20 minutes after the foregoing text, Farwell told Birchmore that he was at her apartment, and subsequent text messages indicate she let him in. 25 minutes later, Birchmore asked Farwell via text whether he enjoyed having relations with her. During February 6th interview,
I read that. So he showed up at her apartment, and then 20 minutes later he left, and she's sending him a text message saying, "Did you enjoy that?" So that's what we call quickies. That ain't no different than this sheriff's deputy down here in Letcher County that was caught going in the judge's chambers. It was also reported he wasn't just doing it in the judge's chambers. He was going to that girl's house on some nights. And he also admitted to doing it in the elevator of the courthouse. What'd you do during? I mean, it didn't say what time of day that he did it in the elevator, but what'd you do? Stop the elevator in the middle of it going from second floor to first floor? I mean, that is like nerve. That's brave. And to think that they're not going to get caught, that's arrogance. Like it's okay. And heck, look at what happens when they do get caught. Nothing happens. What, they're going to serve? This feller down here served 6 months in jail in the Letcher County Jail where his wife worked as a jailer deputy. You think he stayed in that cell the whole 6 months? I doubt it.
Farwell told detectives he had been in Birchmore's apartment the night of February 1st.
I have to see it to
So he
believe
told them that he had been at her apartment that night. However, he denied having anything to do with her
I
death.
get a little upset.
And he probably knew he was going to be caught on cameras going to and from her apartment. He told direct detectives he arrived at 9:10, left around 9:30. I'm aware from my review of the surveillance footage from Birchmore's apartment building that Farwell actually left at 9:43. That was after Birchmore's phone stopped sending messages or recording movement. Within approximately 13 hours of Farwell's visit to Birchmore's apartment on February 1st, his wife gave birth to their third child. Holy cow. Adding to the intensifying pressure to ensure Birchmore would not disclose information regarding Farwell's conduct. So this is all happening at the same time. Her death, birth of his child. Oof. Farwell told detectives that he had not seen Birchmore at all in the week leading up to her death, except on the visit the day of February 1st. Based on my review of the text messages, Farwell visited Birchmore at her apartment on January 29, 2021. Farwell told detectives Birchmore had been sectioned many times. Based on my training experience, section is a term in Massachusetts law enforcement often used to refer to the practice of involuntary hospitalizing on a temporary basis, persons with severe mental health issues. However, the Stoughton Police Department, law enforcement agency in the town where Birchmore lived her whole life before moving to Canton on or about December 1st, 2020, has a record of Birchmore being subject to this temporary mental health hospitalization only one time, and that was in May of 2020. According to police records and information disclosed by Person 7, again, referencing the people that they interviewed, on that day, Birchmore had gotten into a fight with a family member who called the police and reported Birchmore was going to harm herself. The police took Birchmore to the hospital where she was evaluated and deemed not at risk for self-harm. She was released a few hours later. So I will say, details like this, if cops are looking for something to say it was that she ended her own life, details like that usually do come into play in those kinds of investigations.
Yeah.
According to Person 7, Birchmore stated that she was not suicidal, just angry at a family member. Additionally, I am aware that minutes after Birchmore's release from the unforeseen section, Farwell and Birchmore engaged in a graphic sexual conversation. Later, Birchmore apologized for worrying Farwell, and Farwell will plead, "I wasn't worried. I know you are fine."
Man, every communication, it seems like that they had was something, is nefarious the right word to use there? At least it's very inappropriate. It doesn't look like they had any communications that were appropriate.
The Canton Police Department has no record of Birchmore being subject to temporary mental health hospitalization. While there is evidence that indicates that Birchmore may have had suicidal ideations on a few occasions between 2016 and 2018, which Farwell likely knew about because he was exploiting her during that time, I am not aware of credible evidence of any suicidal ideations in the approximately 3 years leading up to her death. In fact, all of the witnesses whose agents interviewed about their interactions with Birchmore in the weeks leading up to her death suggested that during that period, she was excited, optimistic, and involved in future planning. So that had a lot to do with the future baby stuff. Person 7 had a therapy session with Birchmore on January 31st, 2021. During that meeting, Person 7 screened Birchmore for any signs of depression or suicidal ideation. He or she found none. So Person 7 is obviously a mental health counselor of some sort. Person 7 had regular sessions with Birchmore and noted no signs of depression. Additionally, Farwell told detectives that he had been trying to distance himself from Birchmore. This is inconsistent with the evidence that in Birchmore's final days, Farwell asked for a key to her apartment, also reviewed text messages in January 28, 21, just days before her death, where Farwell told her that when he came over that night, he was giving her hugs. In the same conversation, he told her he may not be able to visit her because he was at a death, but that it was all good because we do them all the time. In addition, I reviewed a text message exchange between Birchmore and Farwell on January 29th, in which Birchmore expressed joy at Farwell agreeing to engage in more activity with her again.
You know, yeah, that also made me think too how police officers probably get very desensitized. Maybe not in these small towns where they probably don't see very many crime scenes, but in a big city where they see a lot of unalivings, they probably do get real desensitized to those things to where they're, but it doesn't matter how desensitized you get to seeing death. What he did, like, that's on another level. That's a whole nother level of evil, pure evil.
Farwell's post-interview conduct. Following her death, Stoughton Police Department placed Farwell on administrative leave. Around that time, Farwell met a coworker, person 4, at a local bar. During that meeting, he told person 4 he had a relationship with Birchmore. However, according to person 4, at no point during the conversation did Farwell express any sadness, grief, or remorse about her death. Farwell told person 4 he was angry with MSP for even looking into him, as Massachusetts State.
See, he was angry that they were even looking into him because of his arrogance at thinking that he was going to get away with this, that he could do this and get away with it. So if he could do this so easily, think about Mickey. What Mickey did, it looked like he did it so easily, like it did not look like he had a problem in the world with what he did on that video. Same with this guy. He didn't have a problem in the world with doing what he did. Unbelievable. So you tell me that none of his coworkers in over 10 years of working with this man, 50, 60 hours a week? You're a full-time officer. There's no other officer that saw your character? You think his character didn't shine through in other cases? It had to get to this. He had to do something this bad before anybody stopped it.
Police.
How
so more
often
people he was interviewing.
Everywhere.
At some point during the summer of 2021, person 4 attended a social gathering with Farwell, during which Farwell participated in a joke about Birchmore being hung on the door. Again, each of these little snippets, like you're talking about, that they're taking and putting together to build this picture.
Cop is arrested, yes.
Paint this picture is probably what I was going for. Additional evidence relevant to the detention. Farwell had a history of choking Birchmore.
Can I just stop for a second so that everybody knows? What that means is the government, the United States government, is moving for detention, which means that they don't want him on the streets and having no bond, so he has to sit in jail waiting for his trial. In order to prove detention, they have to prove he's a danger to society. So that's why you start here with the additional evidence to detention. That is to show the magistrate is going to hear the motion that he should not be released on bond. So that's the purpose of this from now on.
So they proved that it was a violent relationship, a history of choking her on more than one occasion. Farwell asked Birchmore to perform these fantasies of him hurting her basically during these interactions and assaults. Moreover, he reviewed text messages that indicate over the course of their relationship, choking her was something that happened on numerous occasions, and he cites a lot of the text messages here where those can be found. Based on my review of Birchmore's journal entries as early as 2013, when she was 16 years old.
His text messages are what sunk him. Like he's had 10 years of text messages with her.
Farwell introduced her to the idea of choking during their encounters and discussions. One example of Farwell's promising to choke Birchmore occurred October 14, 2020. Farwell told Birchmore he was going to cover her mouth during their interaction, maybe choke her a little. grabbed her by the throat. It was discussed in multiple other text messages. He used violent sex as a form of punishment.
Let me stop it and say, read Miss Lori's comment, because she's right. Nicholas Guarino, name of the police forensic expert, who said he couldn't find any text messages between Birchmore and Farwell. As far as I'm concerned, he should be in jail too. Yep, he in the first investigation, or lack thereof, he said he couldn't find any, but the FBI came in, and when the FBI started investigating, they found them very easily.
Kind of skip that graphic nature of it. He had a fixation with those kinds of fantasies of SA and other kinds of abuse. He was obsessive, and had controlling tendencies. I mean, if you think of 30,000 text messages, you get to know what that relationship was like. And
Right.
Anybody that wants to know, just
And all of their text messages were very explicit and talking about fantasies, and it was all very sexual in nature. I don't think that he probably ever spoke to her in any other capacity. You know, and there's a lot of people who are addicted to PORN in this world. There's a whole lot of people that that really get into all of that kind of stuff, and it's very addicting. I reckon it's just like any other substance, or gambling or anything like that. But I don't think there's any cure for that kind of thing. If you have a very sick mind, and those are, you know, the things that you're wanting to do with children, I don't think that there's any therapy that can help with that. You know, I don't think that you're going to be able to be rehabilitated. At least that's my opinion anyway.
every nitty gritty detail that's in this document. I don't really encourage you to read it, but it lays out the sadistic nature of this relationship, the controlling behavior by Farwell, the sexual nature from an early age for Birchmore, and how when somebody starts on something like this, and I'm sure they'll have experts, it's so hard to get out of this. And there's no surprise to experts dealing with victims of this kind of violence and abuse that she would want to have a child with him and want to have any piece of his life and just be part of it, even knowing he had a wife and kid.
She was just wanting to be loved. You know, that's what it sounds to me like. She just wanted to be loved, and she wanted his attention, or she wanted any of their attention. And you know, we don't know because she's not here to tell us anymore. But you know, he could have talked her into doing what she did with his brother and his buddy. For all we know, you know, I mean, I'm just speculating here, of course, but she could have wanted to please him so much. She could have thought that she loved him so much that she wanted to please him. And if he wanted her to do something like that, then that would have pleased him. You know, young girls are very impressionable, and they're very vulnerable, especially to, you know, if you've got an older man. He was 27 years old when when he started messing with her. It's just, so I don't think there's any therapy. I don't think there's any treatment that they can go to this side of the grave. I think that's a sickness that can't be broken. But at least that's my opinion on it.
None of that is surprising when you're groomed at a young age by somebody in a position of authority who continues to do things like this.
It's gonna
So
be hard. It's gonna be hard for you to read a lot of it.
I know I'm trying to see
No, it's
basically exactly what you would expect from an over controlling, angry lover. Disturbed.
The messages are just absolutely awful. And he's got a very morbid sense of humor. Look here, Farwell's iCloud account contains disturbing images regarding violence and it's unalived people, relations with unalived people. He was a sick puppy, y'all. He was a very sick puppy. And a lot of this stuff was not, this is the indictment. So all this stuff is in the indictment, but it's not in the news reports.
Images
And we
regarding
can't say
violence and
a lot of this
necrophilia
stuff
was
on
found on Farwell's iCloud account.
or on YouTube.
Okay, let's just kind of skip through this. His efforts to conceal his crimes, again, which kind of
And you mean to tell me that nobody that he worked with knew this? His brother sure did.
get it into the federal realm. Farwell searched and deleted can something message be recovered by Cellbrite. He then searched for and deleted can you revoke consent in Massachusetts.
Cellbrite. If anyone doesn't know, Cellbrite is a software program
Yeah.
that law enforcement uses to extract all data from a phone. They can mirror the phone. In other words, they can take every bit of data on the phone. They download it into Cellbrite. Then Cellbrite puts it into understandable language like text messages or emails or what your software is. It just takes everything off the phone and analyzes it.
Yeah, they know from watching the Karen Reed trial was a big part
Oh,
of it.
like Karen Rito.
Most people, yeah, I'm sure we're watching that. But yes, thank you for the explanation always. Anytime we can explain something and anybody that's new that may seem like review for other people will be new for some. So that's always helpful, I think. So this is where they're proving that this was starting back when she was as young as 15 years old. And there's lots of text messages and context that would make them be able to prove that. Okay.
Yep, up here, if you look at C.
Oh, sorry, I already X'd out of it.
Oh, okay. I'll just say
Go
what
ahead.
it says. On June 5th, 2019, Farwell directed Birchmore to make sure all of her text messages and Facebook messages had been deleted. So he told her to delete everything.
Destroy evidence, yeah.
Right.
I'm going to let this play because people have a lot of really good questions here, and where they're lawyers, they give some really, really great explanations.
And there was also things in there where in their conversations, you could see how potentially she would, or he would take it as a threat that she was going to expose him for what he did, what her age was, their relationship, ruin his marriage, relationship with kids, things like that. So the motive is as clear as day. And obviously the evidence they have is own words. Like the most damning evidence is usually the defendant's own words, and they've got tons of his in this case. I don't see how, like, what this trial looks like, what kind of arguments he has as far as a defense. I mean, I guess that it was a suicide. That's his defense, is that she took her own life. That's the only story he can really tell from my perspective in defending this case. Can you think of anything else off the top of your head?
No, and it's going to be tough. They've got a lot of evidence against him. He's going to have a tough time. And I think there's going to be some additional witnesses too in that trial because, as we mentioned earlier, there are internal affairs investigations going on in the law enforcement agencies involved. They've already identified his brother, and they've already identified another officer named Divine, who have both been removed from that local police department. And my guess, there are other officers that had involvement with this young lady. And there's also a military recruiter that had involvement. So these people are all going to make deals and testify against, maybe not his brother, but everybody else is going to make a deal and testify against him.
Yeah, it's not going to go well for him. So this is the feds. Does it mean that Judge Cannoni cannot oversee this trial? Definitely not this one. This will be in federal court. I appreciate that the U.S. attorney, at least commented on power in law enforcement. I believe it was directed to both the Predator and Norfolk/Massachusetts State Real Talk. How do we stop this? So yeah, and somebody else said, how does somebody this bad become a cop? I think the better question is, that's obviously a great question, but the better question is, why do people like this? Why are they drawn to being cops? I feel like when they have.
That's my big question. People are drawn to this career for all the wrong reasons, because they sure don't make no money, and it's just not a really great place to work anymore.
This power, and they have this responsibility, and they have this ability to do this and cover it up. Like, most people would not think that they could do what this cop did. And most people would not be able to just say something 2 days after a crime like this, with the allegations that came out just 10 days before somebody passes away. And then we find out that she's pregnant, and then it just to not be automatically considered a homicide, and you would be suspect number one. Like, nobody considered that he could have set up the scene. Well, especially when they have him, leaving on camera from her apartment right at that time. It's crazy.
Well, the U.S. attorney did a good job when he started out by saying things like, law enforcement, the tremendous power they have to make a life or ruin a life.
Yeah.
That's why you have.
And that's the biggest thing. How many lives are traumatized daily by bad police officers? I mean, this guy they let him loose on the community with a weapon, handcuffs, and power most of all. How many of these people are running around our communities creating havoc and committing all kinds of crimes?
To take very seriously when you find corruption in law enforcement, that you have to really root it out so that we don't have it. Because it is true, you can't trust the police officer. I'm sure all of us grew up and people were saying, some of us, maybe not all of us, you trust, but you trust the police. The police are there to help you. And when you find out you have corruption like this, it not only ruins that officer, but every honest officer gets painted with that, and it ruins their reputation.
I'm going to stop it there again. A good officer would call that out. A good officer would call out criminal activity by one of his coworkers. How many good officers are calling out their coworkers? Because I don't see any. I don't see any anywhere. It always takes something. Like, this poor girl lost her life. She lost her life for all of this to come out. And how many other victims of this police officer have been left in his wake? Because I haven't heard anything about them going back into his cases, any of the cases that he has worked on. Unbelievable.
The U.S. attorney alluded to that's why he's got to aggressively go after the bad cops.
But if you noticed in that press conference, every time they asked him, what are they doing about the investigation? Like, who's looking into the first investigation? And he'd say, I'm not here to talk about that. All I'm here to talk about is what's in public record from what we've done forward. I can't speak to their investigation. And it was kind of hard to hear the reporters' questions when they would ask. But I kept waiting on someone to ask, well, whose job is that to go in and look? Wouldn't that be like internal affairs or some? Surely there is someone who's over looking into investigations. But the FBI was hands off. They were like, oh, no, no, no. I can't tell you anything about what they did in that investigation. I can't tell you about anything that's into any other departments. I can't tell you nothing. We don't have nothing to do with that. He said, we've got over 100 attorneys that work in that office, that prosecutor's office. So basically, these prosecutors, they have to rely on the report that the police bring them over any case. So they have to trust that these officers are telling the truth, and that and trust their competency in an investigation. That's where they're supposed to have that good faith immunity. That, I don't know if that's the name of it or not, but I know with social workers, I think that's what their immunity is called, is good faith immunity, meaning that every action that they took as their professional actions that they took were taken on good faith, that everything that they did was in good faith. Look here, y'all. We got Zilmy. We got Sweet Tater.
Yeah, sorry, it took me a while to get on. I was watching a movie and sort of let time get away.
That's okay. We're just coming to the end of this one. We're talking about a case with Sandra Birchmore. She was a young girl that had entered an explorer's program when she was 12, and the police officers started having relations with her when she was 15.
Lord.
And they ended up, one of them, she ended up pregnant, and he'd been messing with her for over 10 years, or about 10 years. And then he went and unalived her and made it look like she had done it to herself. But now the feds finally came in and did a really good investigation. And
So where did this happen?
in Massachusetts.
And so how long ago?
He's waiting to be on trial now. We're listening to a couple lawyers here talk. Let's see.
And that's how we stop it. She asked how we stop it. That question. It's like the feds have to step in. Other good cops have to step in and call out this behavior, and don't turn a blind eye, and don't allow this type of corruption and illegal activity and abuse of force and abuse of power happen. I mean, it's a lot easier said than done.
Well,
Edward said, go ahead. What were you saying?
I was just going to say, and keep in mind, especially in small towns, how the police officers are the powers within those small towns. Local prosecutors are elected. So if they're elected, they're subject to popular vote. If the police department goes against them, they may lose the popular vote, which is why you have federal prosecutors that are appointed and not elected. So they're not as subject to local law enforcement influencing what they do. So that's why you have the U.S. attorney, and you have this balance between the different forms of governments, the two sovereigns, so that you can have this balance.
Yeah, and Edward said, don't worry, Norfolk DA spent the entire Reed trial trying to prove that Selbright is not worth anything. I don't think those kind of arguments are going to help this cop. I don't think the time and the day that some of this stuff was happening was really going to take away from the overarching theme from all the texts and emails that are just abhorrent. Like,
I didn't follow that, but is that true? Did the Norfolk DA try to discredit Selbright?
Yes. And well, not necessarily to discredit Selbright, but they even had like Selbright experts come in and be like, well, when it says the time, it doesn't actually mean the time. Or when it says you searched it here, you should watch that because it'll be interesting in our cases in the future, because I was talking about.
This is really fascinating. This was one of the reasons why I kept it in the clip, him explaining this. Now, this Celebrite, that is a program that police departments and prosecutors, all the criminal justice, law enforcement use this program to, when you go download, when they take your phone and they download all your phone data and stuff, they use this program. And in the Karen Reed case, the lawyer or they had an expert come in trying to say that it didn't necessarily mean what they were saying it did. So I just wanted to let y'all hear this, because this is really kind of shocking that they use it so much in trials, and then the prosecutors are trying to discredit it.
How we would use that, but like they were talking about how if you have something open in the internet on your phone, and then you pull up your phone and you search something, it will put the time that you originally opened the tab as when you searched it. So it could look like you searched something the next day when you really searched it the night before, or vice versa, because whatever that tab open is when that time starts. Even if you're searching something different from a different tab, it was confusing. But yes, they did try to say that on the report, just because it says a time next to a search, that's not what it means. Just because it says the words that you searched next to a time, you could have searched something else in all different ways. Yeah, but I don't think it's going to help him.
You get a transcript of that because every law enforcement agency uses something.
I know.
Everyone.
Exactly what we were saying. It's crazy to think about. It was wild when it was happening. Chaps, it basically rendered it completely useless. Like, if that's true and nothing's really reliable on it, just throw it out.
Right.
Chaps, can this help Karen Reed's case? If so, how?
And you think about how many convictions they've gotten using that data and using that. And then now they're saying that you can't, the times and stuff are completely different and wrong, that they're not accurate that way. That's scary.
I mean, the way I see it helping Karen Reed's case is a lot of accusations are made against law enforcement officers and district attorneys about, oh, they're corrupt, or they're just coming after me because of this, that, and the other, or there's a conspiracy. Most of them are not true. But when you start to find some truth in conspiracies in local prosecutors or law enforcement officers, the more corruption you find, the more corruption the FBI agrees with, the more work you do that the FBI disagrees with, which we know happened in Karen Reed's case at the very least, the worse it is for you, and the more likely they're going to shine a light and put the microscope on you versus just generally across the nation. Can we just point out that the bad cops shouldn't lay the foundation on how we judge all cops? Only the bad cops get this type of attention. I agree, and that's my point. Good cops need to be celebrated. They need to be empowered when they call out corruption. They need to be.
All right, I'm gonna go ahead and end that one because I don't see any cops calling out corruption. What'd you do today, sweet tater? How was your day?
Well, I had a lazy day. I have laid around and watched movies and taken care of my children.
Oh, well, I tell you, my cats, if any of you guys have cats.
Hello, love bug.
My cats are worse than my dogs.
Well, my cats are beautiful. My dogs are pretty good too. Your animals demand a lot of attention.
They do, and they demand a lot of litter box cleaning.
I have pee pads for my doggies in the floor, you know.
Yeah.
Because they don't want to go out, but they went out just a minute ago.
Yeah, I've been using pee pads for mine too. Well, it's awful cold.
It's very cold. So I watched this movie that was called Frontier, I think. It was about Australian people on a cattle ranch. And then I've been watching this one that's called Empress, about this, you know, during that period of time before World War I, when they still had all those little countries over there. Nicholas in Russia was still alive. He was in it.
Yeah. Was it good?
Yeah, I'd watched it before. So I wasn't surprised at anything.
Oh.
But I hadn't watched The Frontier before, and it's if you like, you know, things like Yellowstone, it really was good.
Yeah, I liked Yellowstone.
I haven't Frontiers on Netflix, and it's really good.
I've been hearing a lot of people though lately say that they weren't too impressed with this latest
Yellowstone.
season. Yeah, but I don't think I've watched this latest one. yet.
I
Josh,
tried to watch it and I couldn't get into it, but that was just me.
yeah. Joshua Rivers, JD, hello, honey. He says, my cats are so demanding, I can't even have a dog.
Yeah.
Men chase each other and absolutely climb the walls.
Well, my dogs and cats inside get along pretty good, but I got that little cat that's got a story behind it. Well, it come to my house and lived in the trees until fall, and then I got it to come in the house. Well, I can't get it to come in the house now.
Yeah.
It abandoned me and went down and stayed with my neighbor, and she died.
Yeah.
Well, I took her back.
Yeah.
I mean, I enticed her to come down here and stay with me.
Yeah.
But I got her a heating pad and made her a little den on the porch down under a dresser.
Yeah.
I mean, I made her a nice little hole.
You put her a heating pad in it too, didn't you?
Yeah, it's an animal heating pad, so it won't. I didn't want her to get burnt.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so the dogs went out and went over there to bother her, and she slapped them, and they cried.
Oh. Let's see. Lovebug says Moorhead, Kentucky police say that texts aren't any proof. That's funny, ain't it? Let's see. Calvin Blaine says in search history or history, anything digital can be manipulated.
Well, I'm afraid that's probably the truth.
Especially nowadays with AI.
Oh, I know. Isn't that AI something? I use it occasionally just to see how it will reword what I wrote.
Yeah. Yeah, they've got the chat GPT that's really good to help you write stuff. My son, Alan, he's always telling me that his classmates use it in school, in class.
My dogs demand a lot of attention.
Yep. LS says my dogs demand a lot of attention. Let's go riding around, Mom. Please, please, please. Then comes the laser stare.
Well, mine like to ride around too.
Yeah.
But I don't have good windows in this little van that I have, so they're a real nuisance.
Yeah. Well,
I had that one little van had them great windows.
My seats are, I'm afraid they'll tear my seats with their claws. So they used to be in my old vehicle. I'd take them a ride, but not in my new truck. Mammy says my dogs do not like cats.
Well, mine like to chase that one if they get the chance. But I hope she starts putting a hurting on them and they leave her alone.
I've pretty much trained mine not to mess with my cats. I originally had two cats, and my dog wasn't never allowed in the house because I was afraid she'd hurt them. And one of them accidentally got outside, and she unalived it. And so I really, really whooped her good over that, and now she don't look twice at them. And now she's an inside dog, so we've kind of trained them, and they've done just fine so far. We haven't had any other problems.
I was thinking about that little girl that, can you imagine how horrific her life was? I mean, not only they stole her innocence and her childhood and then wound up killing her, but just think about what misery they put her through for so many years. Yeah. I guess it would be miserable. I don't know.
Well, that was kind of the point that I was trying to make earlier before you got on, when I was talking about the emotional level. She was her brain was not developed yet.
Well, so, she was 12 years old.
And her emotional state was not state's not the right word, but her emotional maturity, I guess, maybe is the best way I know to explain it. It wasn't, it could not develop normally. Young girls or teenagers, even with boys, I mean, the ideal situation is that you've got two kids, they get their first love or crush in school and they're going to be around the same age, not a 12-year-old and a 25-year-old or 15 and a 27-year-old, those
Yeah, they're old people.
those kinds of, you're not on the same level emotionally, maturity, nothing is on an even keel. And so it's just awful because the trauma, even though they probably think they're somebody special, because this real good looking, handsome police officer who's got a wife and some kids, he's liking me and he's sending me a text message. It just it damages so much of the psyche.
Well, I guess it's a continual thing.
Lori Jean, LS, same here. At about 3:30 daily, my pups want their dog park trip. They go sit at the door, and I have a nice yard. Well, I don't have no yard at all or fence. So I have to take mine on a leash, and it's like every 30 minutes they're barking at me. Drives me crazy. Lovebug says, my dog is asleep on my lap right now, dreaming.
Oh, that's so sweet. I got something out on my porch they're barking at. Oh, and he's wanting out. What do you want out to go do?
Well,
What's
we're gonna end this here in just a second. Tim Collins says it would be shocking for public to see all the bad things our law enforcement has committed. Wonder what, if anything, have they done to hire better police? And is there any new training? Exactly.
Well, they need to they need to be given psychological profiles, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And then they need to be trained.
Yeah. Well, like state police, I think the state police, you have to like pass a lie detector test, and you have to have some and they're starting to want them to have more academic education. Like they want you to have a bachelor's degree or some kind of a higher education. Used to, you didn't have to have that, but nowadays they're starting to want it, which is good. Let's see. LS. In the old days, girls married old men who were near dead. I think they still do that too. Called sugar daddies. My doggies are making noises at me too, wanting to go out. We'll wait till Mommy gets back here before we let everybody go. Well, it was sure nice to have everybody again here today. Thank you all for being here. If you've not hit that subscribe button or the like button, it sure helps us out. Thank you, Miss Amanda. Thank you, Lovebug. I sure appreciate you super stickers. But we're gonna get on and we'll do a show tomorrow too, and we'll have Sweet Tater with us longer so she can join in the conversation. All right. Well, you guys have a great rest of your night. Mommy, you have a good night. And
all righty. I'm going to watch more movies.
Okay. Well, you watch TV.
I don't know what's wrong with me.
Why?
Watching movies all day. I should have been outside working.
It was too cold.
I know it. I thought so too.
Yeah.
There she says that girls married old men who were near dead. Well, yeah, that'd be a good idea. Then put a banana plant, banana peeling down and push them on in.
Yeah. Yep.
Slide them right on down in that hole.
All right. Well, we'll see you tomorrow, Mommy. Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody. Have a good night. Bye.